Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Go to Premanande. Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone on the Zoom call. Hari Prusha Prabhu. Nice to see you. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th Canto, Chapter 21, verses 19 through 21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatin Vasyam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll read the Sanskrit from the first two. I'll read the translation, and then we can do the final verse together because the first two verses don't have a purport. Gargas chinistato gargya ksatra brahma hyavartata duritakshaya mahaviryat tasya taraya runi kavi pushkararunya itatra ye brahmanya gatim gata prihat kshatriya putro buddh tashtiya tashtina puram. Translation. From Garga came a son named Shini, and his son was Gargya. Although Gargya was a Kshatriya, there came from him a generation of Brahmanas. From Mahavirya came a son named Duritakshaya, whose sons were Trayaruni, Kavi, and Pushkaranuni. Although these sons of Duritakshaya took birth in the dynasty of Kshatriyas, they too attained the position of Brahmanas. Bharat Kshatriya had a son named Hasti, who established the city of Hastinapur, which is now New Delhi. Ajamidho divimdhascha purumidhascha hastina ajamidhasya vangshyashu priyamedhadayo dvijaha. So let's read the word for word. Ajamidha, Ajamidha, Dvimidha, Dvimidha, Cha, also, Purumidha, Purumidha, Cha, also, Hastina, became the sons of Hasti, Ajamidhasya, of Ajamidha, Vangsya, descendants, Syuhu, are Priyamedhadya, headed by Priyamedha, Dvija, Brahmanas. Translation. From King Hasti came three sons named Ajamidha, Dvimidha, and Purumidha. The descendants of Ajamidha, headed by Priyamedha, all achieved the position of Brahmanas. Purport. This verse gives evidence confirming the statement of Bhagavad Gita that the orders of society, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, are calculated in terms of qualities and activities, guna, karma, vibhagasha. All the descendants of Ajamedha who were a Kshatriya became Brahmanas. This was certainly because of their qualities and activities. Similarly, sometimes the sons of Brahmanas or Kshatriyas become Vaishyas, Brahmana Vaishyatam Gata. When a Kshatriya or Brahmana adopts the occupation or duty of a Vaishya, he is certainly counted as a Vaishya. On the other hand, if one is born a Vaishya, by his activities he can become a Brahmana. This is confirmed by Narada Muni. Yasya Yalakshanam Proktam. The members of the Varnas or social orders, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra, must be ascertained by their symptoms, not by birth. Birth is immaterial. Quality is essential. Srila Prabhupada ki. So, previous to this verse, we were hearing the story of King Ranti Dev, who was a king, although he obviously had many Brahminical qualities. In that story we just heard, demigods such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they disguised themselves as common people in order to show the glories of King Ranti Dev. So King Ranti Dev and his family, they were fasting for 48 days. And at the conclusion of their fast, they were getting ready to eat and drink some water. And right as they were about to start, Brahmana appeared. And so the king, he offered food to the Brahmana, food and water to the Brahmana. And then after that, he distributed food to his family members. But then a Shudra came, and so he offered the rest of his food to this Shudra. And then he was just getting ready to drink his water. He was accepting, okay, I'm not going to eat any food today. I'll just have some water. And just at that moment, a Chandala appeared, and he gave his water to the Chandala. And so he was left with nothing. But he was explaining that because he was serving Krishna and his mind is absorbed in service, that he's not feeling hungry or thirsty. He feels satisfied by doing the service. And then at that moment, the demigods revealed themselves and were praising him. So in this next verse, we're continuing to describe the lineage of Bharata. And that's why there's so many names. And this whole, a lot of this chapter is just talking about names and the different generations going forward. So in this purport, Prabhupada is saying that the Varnasrum system is not based by birth. It's based on the qualities and activities of the person. And that's a very important distinction. Because the Varnashram system, although not implemented strictly in India, the remnants of it are still there, from what I've heard, not from experience. And sometimes it's taken out of context. So if someone is born in a particular family, they are treated and brought up as that whatever particular caste it's called now. whatever caste they're in, which doesn't allow any flexibility in a social position based on a person's qualities. So in this purport, he's saying that if someone is born in a family of kshatriyas or people, managers of society, if they have more of inclination, or if their nature is that of a brahmana, then they are to be considered a brahmana. And if he has the qualities of Vaishya, then he should be considered as a Vaishya. Must be ascertained by their symptoms, not by their birth. And why is this important? Prabhupada describes that Varnasrum is the beginning of human civilization. And when we think of human civilization, there might be many different thoughts that come to mind. What is human civilization? What is the sum of human civilization? When I hear the word human civilization, basically the first thing that comes to mind is technological progress. And probably just because of what I was taught in school system. When I think of human civilization, I think of a timeline of human beings from simplistic cavemen to building skyscrapers and self-driving cars. And, massive production, boats, giant ships, transporting things all over the place, being able to get something delivered overnight using Amazon, like civilization. That's sort of what comes to mind. What Prabhupada's saying is that human civilization, first we have to understand what is the aim of human life. And Prabhupada says that the aim of human life is to understand God. In order to understand God, there needs to be first a desire, or even just the questioning. That questioning has to arise first to even get to that point. And so the concept of the aim of human life to understand God, this idea has mostly been given up in society, and the overarching consensus is that human life is made to enjoy, is made for enjoyment. But Prabhupada gives so many examples of why that's illogical. Why is it illogical that human life is made for enjoyment? Because when you think about design, if I design, let's say I design a car. A car is designed to transport a person and some things from one place to another. It's not designed to fly. Why? Because it's not designed that way. It's made with a particular purpose. And so if human life is made for enjoyment, if it's designed that way, then why is it so easy to become in a situation where we're not enjoying? Why is it that you can kick your toe easily against something and immediately be in a painful condition? And why is it that we can see from examples historically when people are given every single thing that they want in regards to money and power and fame and beauty, that they can still become completely, they can hit rock bottom. They can be completely depressed, even to the point of taking their own lives, even though they're giving everything in this world to enjoy. And so it's if we think about it in that way, it can be easy to understand that this world is not designed with the sole aim of enjoying. And when we experience suffering, because we are thinking that the aim of life is to enjoy, then that should make us question, why am I suffering? If the purpose of life is to enjoy, why am I not doing that? And this brings rise to questioning, where am I from? Where am I going after death? Who is God? What is this? So Prabhupada is saying that Varnashram, the reason why it's the beginning of human civilization is because it's directing the entire society towards understanding that the aim of human life is to understand God. And we can see if you inquire, if you go around the world and ask people about God, they'll either deny the existence of God, or they don't have a clear idea. Even people in high religious positions. And this is something I experienced when I was in grade school. I was going to a Catholic school from the time I was 5 until I was 14. And I had many questions about the world. And I thought, well, I'll go ask my priest, because the priest has a very close connection with God. We would go to church and I would see, the priest is there and he's performing rituals. He speaks from the Bible. He's speaking on behalf of Jesus, who is there to represent God. So I thought, this is the person to ask. This is where I can get my questions answered. And so whenever I would have the opportunity, I would sit down with him and I would ask him a lot of different questions, a lot of things I was confused about. I would ask him about death. I would ask him about, why was I born in the family that I was born in? How did that happen? And I was never satisfied with the answers. And even later, I wanted to go through the process. Just for simplicity's sake, I'll just call it Catholic initiation, where you go through about a 5-month training period. You learn the different scriptures and you are sort of initiated. And during that time, the same thing happened to me. I had many questions that I was asking to the authorities, who had spent significant part of their life studying the Bible. And I couldn't get a satisfactory answer from my questions. And that's not to say that it's not just, and I'm not saying this to say that it's their fault, but I'm saying this more so to emphasize that the Shastras that we're given, they give full descriptions. They give full descriptions of God, his name, his pastimes, his activities. And Bhagavad Gita is words directly spoken by God. And so that's something that's very, very unique. I haven't studied all the world religions, but I did take a world religion class in college, and or in high school rather. And there's nothing that can compare to Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita as far as how detailed descriptions we're given of God and his pastimes. And so this is very unique. So to get back to the point of Varnashram, this whole purport is sort of talking about Varnashram. I want to preface some of this by saying that Prabhupada talks about Varnashram in many different circumstances. He talks about it in classes. he writes about it in his books, and he talks about it in like walks, when he's going for morning walks with his disciples. And so in order to get a clear understanding of Prabhupada's discussions on Varnashram, it's important to consider the context in which he's speaking about them, and as a whole, throughout his whole life, through all his writings. And so I'll just preface this by saying that I haven't read all of his writings. I haven't heard all of his morning walks. And so when I'm speaking about this, I'll try to just put it into context of where he's speaking. So in a Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada says that Varnashram is required to understand this point, that we are an eternal spirit soul. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he was existing in the past and will continue to exist into the future, as well as all living entities, that we're eternal spirit soul, and the soul is never destroyed. And yeah, Prabhupada says in this class, Varnashram is required to understand this point. So he's really emphasizing the importance of Varnashram for society to come to a point to understand that understanding God is the aim of human life. Varnashram is required. And there are so many ideas in modern society about how to become more of a classless society, to equalize the playing field. Why should we have a managing class and a working class? Why can't we just be classless? And there are arguments for and against it, but the Shastra says that Varnashram is something that it even happens naturally even if it's not enforced. Just in general, societies will divide themselves up by the qualities of the people there. And so, some people will be more inclined to just follow instructions. They're just like, I don't want to think about managing all these people. Just tell me what to do. I'm happy to do it. And there's other people who they can't be in that position. They can see ways to do things better. So as a manager, they're able to delegate. And some don't even want to be in a position of management. They want to be thinking about principles, and they want to impart wisdom to those who are managing. So those are like the brahmanas. And there are people who want to be productive. They want to produce things and create the economies of society, and those are the Vaishyas. And so there was another interesting discussion that Prabhupada had about Varnashram in a morning walk in India. Prabhupada was talking at length about how, in India, when he was growing up, the system is that girls are married at a young age so that they always know, well, they're married at a young age and they know who their husbands are going to be, like from the time that they're quite young, maybe 8 or 9. And when they become mature enough, then they move into the home of the husband. And some of the devotees who were on the morning walk were saying, Prabhupada, like, well, this is not how we're doing it in ISKCON. Like, no, we're not doing that. And Prabhupada said, no, like it's not required. Our main business is how to make everyone Krishna consciousness, how to make everyone Krishna conscious. This is our aim. And he's not saying like people need to change the way that they are. We don't need to strictly adopt any particular thing that's that he grew up with. The main point is to become Krishna conscious. And another devotee asked, if Varnashram is neglected, how can there be proper functioning of society? And this is an interesting point, because in one of Prabhupada's classes, he says Varnashram is required to understand this point. And on this morning walk, they're talking about Varnashram. And this devotee says, if Varnashram is neglected, how can there be a proper functioning of society? And Prabhupada replies, if the society chants Hare Krishna seriously, then it is all right. Never mind what is done. It doesn't matter. This is the power of Sankirtan. If one is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, then all benefit is there. And so again, Varnashram is a huge topic, and how to apply it and where to apply it and how that's supposed to look. That's a big discussion. But here, it's just interesting to see, to hear from Prabhupada what he is emphasizing in different situations. And from what it seems, what it seems like to me is that when Prabhupada is saying that Varnashram is required to understand this point, it sounds like he means as a society, like as a human society, speaking very broadly. But he makes another point in this morning walk. He says, a lot of people are wondering how are my disciples becoming great devotees? There was no Varnashram Dharma when I came to the United States. There were hippies, and on the Lower East Side of New York City, right here, there was no Varnashram Dharma. So how was he able to impart Krishna consciousness to people where there was no Varnashram Dharma? And Prabhupada says it's because the Krishna consciousness movement is spiritual, and Varnashram Dharma is it's important for those of us who are in the bodily concept of life, who don't have a clear understanding of our soul and our relationship with Krishna and the big picture. Prabhupada says, as long as you're in the bodily concept of life, we require Varnashram Dharma. Otherwise, it's not so necessary. Varnashram Dharma is for the good health of the society, but not important for Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, how could I start this movement? And then he gives an example of Krishna consciousness being like jumping over a river. And I imagine he's pointing at a river, because during their morning walk, he says like, it sounds like he's pointing at a river and saying like, look, Krishna consciousness is like jumping over from one side of the river to the other. And Varnashram Dharma is like walking across a bridge step by step. So he says that, the Krishna consciousness movement is starting from the spiritual platform. And that's why he was able to start the movement, despite there not being Varnashram Dharma established in the society. So those are some of my thoughts and reflections, and just trying to repeat what I'm reading from Prabhupada. We have about 10 minutes left. I wanted to ask if anyone had any thoughts they'd like to share. Hari Krish Prabhu?
Yeah, maybe not so much a thought, but just sharing what we've heard from Srila Prabhupada in scripture, that these components are there as a way of offering everyone an opportunity, regardless of their propensity, to contribute to a harmoniously functioning society, which has the aim of engaging people in devotional service to Krishna. And if the Brahmins are there and doing their service, they're asking the Vaishyas for donations. They're directing those donations to building temples, producing literature, distributing prasadam, engaging the performing arts and the graphic arts to illustrate the principles taught in the revealed scriptures, because the Brahmins are doing the service of studying the scripture and presenting it to the broader society. The Brahmins are there not to manage, but to advise. And then everything works nicely. And then, as you were pointing out, so it's so important to understand that although there's Varnasrum system, there's something above that. The Vaishnav, Prabhupada coming as a Vaishnav, and Lord Chaitanya said, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Brahmachari, I'm not a Sanya, I'm a servant of the servant. So the Vaishnav is willing to do anything. A Brahmin might say, I only do this. I only read the books, I don't do any menial cleaning, I don't do any cooking, but Prabhupada did everything. He managed the Lakshmi, he generated the Lakshmi, he chastised like a Kshatriya and managed, he studied the scripture and presented the scripture. And he's giving this Varnashram system, Chaturvarnamaya Ashram, created by the Lord, indicating that everyone can do something. And it all works together. It's not wrong for a person. And this whole chapter about this devotee married that devotee, and then they had this son, and then it's very interesting to remember that this whole marriage thing is normal. That people will be married, that they will have children, that this will be passed from one generation to another, from parents to children, to their children, to the grandchildren, and that it's going on, and that there are varieties of trajectories that people can have. And we just want to add, how wonderful is Krishna? We try to squeeze that in the class somewhere, that actually we're here to glorify the Lord, that Krishna has presented this system. How wonderful is Krishna? That he's giving everybody access to devotional service, whether they're a scholar, whether they're a construction worker, whether they're an artist, that everybody can engage in Krishna's devotional service. And that the Brahmins are supposed to relate like this to the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas are supposed to relate like this to the Brahmins and the Sudras. So it's not only what everybody's role is, but how they connect and how they respect and affect each other's contribution. For the Bhagavatam explains, this literature that glorifies the Lord is meant to bring about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. So you have a civilization with the police department and the university, and they're cleaning the roads and they're collecting the garbage. But if the civilization is misdirected, like you're explaining, to only elaborate, sophisticated sense gratification, then it's a dead end, because death comes. And what's the point? But if we connect to devotional service, everyone benefits, and Krishna is pleased. Everyone can please Krishna.
Thank you, Hari Krish Prabhu. Was there something to share or ask here?
Please repeat, we can't hear them.
I will. 1 second.
What is it? I can understand the general idea, but specifically, if it were in place, how would that be in place? How would people reach Krishna consciousness? It would just have a more collective, peaceful existence.
Mm. The question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, what is the Varnashram system practically look like if it were implemented in the society, both in devotional aspects and in broader society? How will that bring people closer to Krishna? Is that right? Yeah. Would you like to respond to that, Adi Prushu, or anyone else?
It's simple and clear. Brahmins have activities: study the scripture, teach the scripture, engage in worship, introduce other people to that activity, that experience, that discipline of worship. And the Brahmins are meant, this is a duty, the Brahmins are meant to ask others for donations. They're meant to go out, interact with people of the other society. Somebody's producing money, and saying, so can you give it? It's humbly, not demanding, but saying, we're asking if you'll give a donation. We're building a temple. We're asking if you'll give a donation. We're distributing Krishna's prasadam for the homeless. We're asking if you'll give a donation. This is literature that's very valuable, scriptural information coming from the Supreme Lord. Please give a donation. So when the Brahmins do their duty, then everyone is benefited. And then the Vaishyas are meant to produce, but they're supposed to support the Brahmins. And the managers, the leadership people, the martial class, they're meant to manage, but they're asking advice from the Brahmins. How should we do this, So it starts with education. It is not that everyone is forced or beaten into doing things, but they hear about what's recommended by the Lord. How wonderful is Krishna. And then to the extent that they're willing to take that up. It looks like Bhima has a question or a comment. Bhima, unmute yourself, yeah. Bhima, can you hear us?
Hari Hari.
Haribol.
Hari Hari. I'm unmuted. Haribol. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Haribol?
Yeah.
Yes? That's a yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I'm all off rhythm. Wonderful class, great cadence. I love when people take the time to allow us to digest in between each plate of truth. So kudos for that. As far as Varnasrum goes, this is the true thing, but as is Krishna in his Leela fighting huge donkeys, jackasses, and bulls, and bakasura and snakes. These are all true, but how do they apply factually in our lives every day? And that is Prabhupada. The demons, these external representations, manifestations, which were real because Krishna likes to have fun, are in us now, so to speak. They're among. We listen very closely. And so similarly, Varnashram Dharma is within us. You'll find the majority, I have found that the majority of great devotees, everyday working devotees, devotees that I have met that are full of love, have a bit of the Brahmin, a bit of the Vaishya. You meet an Indian who is naturally Brahminical. I mean, it's just his nature. And yet he's at MIT, he's a professor or something like that. So there's the Brahmin, but he's also like a management of a company. He's a manager. And he gets down and dirty when there's a feast. He's down washing the pots without any type of like late at night when nobody's around.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to.
Oh, sorry.
We can continue the discussion, but I'm going to just turn off the microphone here in the temple room because there's time for darshan. But please continue.
Oh, Hare Krishna. I don't want to continue into darshan. People to see the deities and to hear the offering. But anyways, it's very important we understand that this is all within us now. It is not so much external. We can be Sudras. We can be Sudras. We can be cleaning fields. We can be cleaning paddocks. We can be cleaning bathrooms. And then the next moment we're reading Bhagavatam. So Varnasrum is from Brahman. It's all wiped away clean if you're a Vaishnav. And a Vaishnav never hesitates to do what needs to get done, whether it's Sudra, Brahminical, or Kshatriya, or Vaishya. Hare Krishna.
Glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
I was cleaning the bathroom and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam at the same time as Bhima was talking. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, we're all possessed. We're possessed by demons. Right, and Varnashram is within us. It's like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he says that we have two dogs fighting within us. One is a good dog, the other one is the bad dog. And guess which dog wins? Does anybody know the answer? Which dog wins?
The one that you feed the most?
The one you feed.
Right, Kev. Yeah, the one that you feed. Yeah.
We need them.
Yeah. So let's starve. Let's starve the bad one today and tomorrow.
Let's not. Let's leave the dogs out of this. Let's leave the dogs out of this. Let's leave the animals out of it. When we compare ourselves to, sex life, just like the animals. I'm around animals all day, and they have a lot. My geldings are much more gentlemen than 99.9% of the men out there. And sorry, including sometimes devotees.
Nice, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, we're so insensitive to animals.
Yeah, let's change the dialogue. I mean, of course, Prabhupada said that it's time and circumstance, but we got to realize that we have propensities that are low, but it's not necessarily doggish. Dogs are super. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I got two dogs and I love them, man. They're my devotee partners, man. They chant with me. They chant with me all day long. So they do. I don't chant all day long.
Yeah,
but anyways,
no
long
offense
story
to your
short,
dogs. Yeah.
let's try to change the thing into realizing that these propensities are the result of envy, not the result of beautiful animalistic instinct. It's the result of envy of Krishna. I'm Krishna. The girls are mine. The guys are mine. This land is mine. And that's what brings us down to do animalistic and bad things. Hare Krishna. I should know.
Bhima Prabhu, thank you so much. It's always a breath of fresh air to hear from you and from your friends in animal bodies. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. Gail, Angel, Jason Prabhu, Jamuna Jaya, Pet Dunphy, Rohini Dasi, everyone, thank you so much. Have a blessed day. We'll see you all tomorrow, Sunday. Yeah, Hare Krishna.